Good day. Welcome to the Association of Pool and Spa Professionals Training Program for registration as an exam proctor for the APSP Certification Program. My name is Jennifer Hines, and I'm the Manager of Professional Development in the APSP Career Institute. As part of our update of the certification program, completion of this program is mandatory prior to you being authorized to proctor any of our examinations. We appreciate your interest in the program and your willingness to provide assistance in the proper administration of the exams. Our agenda today will cover a variety of topics and should take about 45 minutes to complete. First, I'll provide a brief overview of the APSP certification program to provide some context for the value and importance of the certification exams and the program as a whole. Then I'll take you through the exam administration process. If you've proctored high-stakes assessments in the past or other exams, you're probably familiar with many of these exam protocols. But please bear with me and go through the program methodically so you are well-versed on the particulars as they relate to our program. We'll talk about exam room preparation, the check-in process, the manner and delivery of instructions, how to conduct active proctoring during the exam, and what to do if some unlikely circumstances present themselves. And we'll talk about wrapping up the exam, the safe return of the test materials, and some post-exam details. So let's get started. The APSP certification program has been in existence since the late 1980s. Countless volunteer and staff hours have gone into the development and maintenance of the certification programs for pool building professionals and pool service professionals. On the service side, we certify maintenance specialists, service technicians, and service professionals. Formerly known as Tech 1 and Tech 2, the Maintenance Specialist and Service Technician certificates are new certifications for us. Individuals new to the industry will generally start with the Maintenance Specialist program and work their way up over time to the Service Professional designation. However, an individual with the necessary experience and continuing education credits may test at the highest level without passing through the first two. Each certificate program stands on its own. As for the Certified Building Professional designation, an individual interested in testing for this certification must have the requisite experience and continuing education in order to qualify. This is to ensure, to the extent possible, that certified building professionals have both the technical and business experience necessary to be a successful pool builder, not just the, quote, book knowledge that can be gleaned from reading the builder's manual. APSP education and certification programs are designed to create career pathways for the industry. APSP training programs teach, and our assessments evaluate, the knowledge, skills, and abilities determined to be critical for each level, as determined by respected industry leaders. Certification is important so that individuals can distinguish themselves as professionals and that companies can demonstrate their commitment to training and employee development. All APSP programs are designed so that they can be used by lawmakers in jurisdictions that wish to develop licensing requirements and programs. Your job as a proctor is an important part of this process. You ensure our programs have integrity and continuity. Individuals can prepare to take the exams through various methods. APSP chapters and regions offer tech schools or pool schools that run for a week, during which they provide the education and testing for the maintenance specialist and service technician programs. Those interested in sitting for the Certified Building Professional and Certified Service Professional exams can attend a prep course sponsored by APSP to get a final review before taking the exams. APSP also offers the option of completing the maintenance specialist education via correspondence course, followed by testing. And of course, knowledge gained on the job and through reading our technical manuals is invaluable in preparing for the exam. The APSP program also recognizes the value of continuing education offered by other industry organizations, as well as former college, university, and trade school programs. Now, let's talk about your specific responsibilities as an exam proctor for any of these exams. We've already gone over the agenda for this section, but I think you can see what area I'm going to stress as the most important part of your job: ensuring exam security. I cannot stress this strongly enough. Every time we ship out exams, we are putting the security of our exam in jeopardy, and so we must do everything we can to mitigate the risk. Handling the aftermath of a breach of test security is extremely expensive and time-consuming. That's why we've instituted this mandatory education program for all exam proctors, so there is no question as to what the expectations are regarding the safe handling and proper administration of this exam. This also ensures standardization of our test delivery so that every examinee, no matter where they take the course, receives a similar testing experience. Now, let's go over each of these areas. For this part of the training, we'll assume that you are proctoring for a group at a tech school, pool school, or a similar group testing event. I'll talk a little bit about proctoring in individuals at the end. Well, thousands of dollars and hundreds of volunteer and staff hours have been invested in each of the certification exams we've developed. So it's crucial to the ongoing success of the program that the security of the exam be maintained at all times. So your primary objective during any exam administration is to safeguard the integrity of the program by making sure no exam booklets or written notes leave the testing room. But we also want to ensure that a chain of custody is maintained as well. So APSP will send you the test materials to arrive just before the exam date, so you don't have to hang on to them for too long. Mailing will be via UPS or a similar service that provides this ability to track the package. Once you've received the package, open it and double-check that all the necessary materials are there for the test administration: exam booklets, answer forms, comment forms, and instructions. And they'll also include an envelope for the return of the test materials, or a label if the materials were sent in a box that you can return and reuse. Then just place the package in a secure location until you need it. If you're proctoring at a tech school or pool school, the tech school leader may be sent the exams instead, and then will be charged with maintaining security until providing you with the exam package. Once you've arrived at the testing site, you need to pay particular care to the handling of the exam materials. The exam booklet should be kept within your site at all times, even if that means carrying them to the restroom with you. You'll find that all test booklets are sequentially numbered. This will allow you to verify that you have all the exams accounted for at all times. There is really no circumstance under which you should be turning over the handling of the package of exams to another person. An exception might be made for the occasional circumstance when, due to the size of the group, additional proctoring assistance is needed. Now let's talk for a moment about special test accommodations. Individuals with a documented disability are entitled to receive accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. These accommodations must be sought prior to the exam administration. Consequently, your APSP contact will alert you in advance if there's anyone requiring accommodations. Those accommodations might be allowing extended time for testing or having the test read aloud. In those cases, you will have agreed ahead of time to the extra time involved, so no surprises. APSP will provide all the information you need to provide the accommodations, but you should always feel free to call your APSP contact if you have any questions at all about the directions. We want any accommodations to be provided in such a way that minimizes any stigma that could be associated with them. So you will be well prepared should any accommodations need to be provided. And should a student suddenly ask for accommodations on the day of the exam, you should call your APSP contact to receive direction on how to proceed. Okay, the day of the exam has arrived, and you'll need to arrive early to prepare the room for the exam. You should have the room cleared of all people, paper, and other materials for at least 20 minutes prior to the exam check-in time. During that time, you should make sure that the table desktops are completely clear of any paper, books, or other materials. You should also place the chairs to ensure proper spacing between examinees to discourage any straying eyes. That usually means 2 people per 6-foot table. Find a spot where examinees can stow their coats and any other personal belongings while they take the exam. Then get the room ready for the exam by laying out an answer form, comment form, and posting a sign that explains that although drinks are okay, no food items will be permitted. You'll distribute the exam booklets once everyone is checked in, settled, and the exam directions have been read aloud. And don't forget to get a restroom break in there before you open the doors to the examinees. This could be your last opportunity until after the exam. Once you've got the room ready, it's time to let the examinees enter the room. Depending on the size of the group, you may want to check them in at the door, or if it's a group under 15 people or so, you can probably handle it once they've taken their seats. But first, provide a reminder that this would be a good time to visit the restroom before the exam begins. Hopefully this will eliminate those last-minute dashes just before you're ready to start the clock. Your check-in should include checking names against a list provided by APSP or your contact on site. You should also confirm identities by checking a photo ID. If someone cannot present a photo ID but has two other IDs with their name on it, you may accept that, but you should make a note of it on the check-in form. As individuals get seated, indicate the assigned places for them to stow any personal items, notes, cell phones, pagers. Those should be completely turned off. This area should be away from the examinees and where they're taking the test. The only exception is for the maintenance specialist and service technician examinees. They have open book exams, so they may have their service tech manual and their workbook with them during the exam, but no other notes, handouts, or loose papers are permitted. For other exams, that is calculator only with no extra papers or manuals. Once everyone is checked in and settled in their seats, you can begin to read the exam instructions to the participants. Try to be conversational, not overly serious. Many are already nervous, and so your relaxed demeanor will help calm their nerves. The instructions should be read aloud in their entirety and then ask for any questions. As you go over the instructions, demonstrate the proper method of completing the answer sheet. You may be surprised to learn that some individuals in your group have never used a standardized test form. So go through that before they get started. And go through the definition of cheating. Explain that cheating is, among other things, looking at someone else's paper, as well as allowing your own paper to be seen by another tester. Let them know that you'll be watching. In fact, you may want to alert them that when they look up from their paper, invariably they'll find that you're looking right at them. Explain that test proctoring requires that you be attentive to them during the test period, and after long stretches of seeing nothing but the tops of their heads, when a face pops up, it draws your eye, no matter where else you were looking. It's also important to let them know that they may raise their hand to ask you a question at any time during the exam. You may not be able to answer it, but they can ask. But they may not speak to anyone else during the testing. Now, don't be surprised if you see people who appear to be talking. Likely they're just reading the question softly aloud to themselves. That's okay, provided it doesn't seem to be disruptive to their neighbors. Also let them know that they may not take any notes during the exam or remove any paper from the exam room. They're welcome to make comments on any of the questions on the comment form, but even those are collected at the end, regardless of whether comments were even written. Finally, let them know that the preliminary results will be provided to the exam coordinator or sponsor within 5 days of the receipt of the exam materials back at APSP. Written results will be mailed to participants directly within 3 to 4 weeks of the test date. Active proctoring. What does that mean? Well, that means that you're actively engaged in the business of watching the examinees throughout the testing period. I'm sorry, it doesn't include reading a magazine or a book or surfing the internet because you think your group is, quote, good. You are expected to circulate throughout the room during the exam, glancing at the answer sheets to ensure they are being filled out properly. If you find someone who's not completing the form properly, please provide an immediate alert to them and guide the examinee in the correct process. Under no circumstances, however, should you suggest to an examinee that he or she re-examine a particular question or reconsider a particular answer. You may answer questions posed by examinees if they're purely for clarification of a word or statement. You may not offer any comment that would assist them in gleaning the correct response. Finally, you are required to remain in the testing room until the last examinee is finished. If the examination is 3 hours in length and you anticipate you'll have need of a restroom break, make arrangements ahead of time with the event sponsor to have a temporary proctor step in and cover your group while you step out. But your break should be restricted to just the restroom. Smoke breaks or breaks to go get food are not permitted. As the exam progresses, you should be offering regular time checks every half hour. During the final hour, you may want to give quarter-hour time checks so they can pace themselves to the end. Let the examinees know at the beginning that they should raise their hand to indicate when they've completed the exam and are ready for it to be collected. When you see that, go to the examinee and collect all the test materials. This should include the test booklet, the exam answer sheet, the comment sheet, and a pencil if you provided it. Look over the answer sheet while you're standing there to ensure all questions have been answered. Leaving a blank is the same as a wrong answer, so encourage them to provide a response to every question. Nobody is permitted to take any notes away from the exam outside the exam room, so be sure all paper distributed at the beginning comes back at the end. And don't allow yourself to be rushed when multiple people finish simultaneously. Take your time and be methodical. They can wait an extra minute. And if you find the examinees are standing around outside the testing room while the exam is still in progress, just put your head outside in the hallway to disperse them so that they don't provide any distraction to those that are still finishing. And as time comes to a close, give a final wrap-up opportunity and then collect all test materials. Once the examinees have departed, do a clean sweep of the room to ensure that all exam materials have been picked up and that no one left anything of value in the room. Making sure the answer sheets stay with their exam booklet, reorder the test booklets sequentially to double-check that you have all the booklets. Once you verified that, you can repack the box or the envelope with all of the exam materials, plus the check-in sheet and any other necessary paperwork. If a tech school coordinator gave you the test packet, please return it to that person for shipping. Otherwise, you're responsible for shipping the exam materials within 24 hours, unless the exam date falls on a weekend when no pickup will occur. Please be sure to safeguard the package as you have all along until you've handed it off to the shipper. Now let's talk about some situations that might arise while you're giving the exam. We can't necessarily anticipate all the potentialities, but we can cover the most likely. First, what to do if someone needs to use the restroom during the exam. Well, we're going to try and keep that to a minimum to avoid disruption in the exam setting. During exams of 2 hours or less, restroom visits will not be permitted. Now, emergencies, you can make an exception, but notice will be given ahead of time, so this shouldn't constitute a problem. For the 3-hour exams, restroom breaks can be given. You will need to collect all the test materials from the individual as he or she departs and allow just one person to leave the room at a time. If you have reason to believe that the break is being used to go beyond the restroom, then make note of it for APSP staff to consider. This break is part of the 3 hours allowed, so no additional time is given for the period of the break. Many test administrations will take place in hotel meeting rooms or other public buildings, so the possibility always exists for a fire alarm to go off. Should that occur, you should immediately gain control of the situation, requiring the participants to listen closely to your instructions. You don't want everyone leaping up and running out the door. You should quickly instruct them to place their answer sheet and comment sheet inside their test booklet, ensuring that their name is on all items. Then you should collect the materials as they remain in their seats. Once the booklet is collected, they may line up at the exit. Ask that they all remain silent during their exit and while they wait outside for the situation to be cleared. You should place all test materials in the box or envelope and carry it with you as you depart the room. Stay with your group and provide clear reminders that test conditions are still applicable and silence should be observed. Once the all clear is given, return to the room, settle everyone, and distribute the exam materials back to the participants. Restart the time from where you ended prior to the alarm going off. Obviously, part of your job is to watch for anyone attempting to cheat off someone else's paper. But depending upon how closely situated examinees may be, it is possible that an innocent glance could be mistaken for cheating. And sometimes examinees glance over at a neighbor's answer sheet simply to see how far along they are, perhaps as a gauge for where they should be. So don't overreact. If you do see someone looking at their neighbor's exam and it does seem to be more than a casual glance, go immediately to that individual and quietly provide a brief verbal warning that it's important to keep his or her eyes directed strictly to their own paper. This will solve the problem in 95% of the cases. Should you see it again, you should take steps to move those individuals apart from one another. Perhaps someone has already finished the exam and departed and some extra space is available. If so, use it. If you can't move the individual, provide a second warning and let him or her know that if it occurs again, they will be asked to leave the exam room. You may want to place yourself in a closer proximity to this individual to serve as a very visual reminder. And of course, if it happens again, you will need to ask the individual to hand in the exam and all other materials and leave the room. Once the exam is over, just document the situation in a written description of the events and send it in with that exam. And finally, be alert to the possibility that the neighbor is actually allowing his or her exam to be seen by this individual doing the looking. This is also cheating, and if you see this occurring, both parties should be warned and then removed if the behavior continues after the second warning. What to do if someone not testing asks to look at the test booklet? Yes, that can be a delicate situation. You may get that request from an instructor who's a very valued and ethical volunteer. They're curious. Well, no matter the situation, the answer to this question is easy. And the answer is, I'm sorry, the exam may only be viewed by those registered to take it. In order to maintain the integrity of the exam, you must say no, no matter how benign the request may seem. Use your APSP staff contact as the bad guy if you need to in this situation, and refer anyone who disputes your decision to that contact person. Although very rare, there may be a situation in which there are so many questions being asked of you that you feel you aren't providing the adequate level of oversight of the rest of the room as you answer these questions. Or, even rarer, you may find that the group starts to chat among themselves when they see you're involved in answering a question for an examinee. They will see it as cover for a quick chat with their neighbor. Perhaps on nothing more than noting how hard the test is, but it could become an exchange of information that would be inappropriate. So whether there's a deliberate effort afoot to distract you from your duties, or you just happen to get a group with a lot of questions, you should treat them the same. First, examinees should be directed to raise their hands if they have questions, and that you will go to them. They should not come out of their seats. Then, once you hear the question, determine quickly whether this is a question you're permitted to answer or not. If you can answer it, provide the briefest possible answer and confirm that the examinee understands your response. While answering, continue to glance around the room and don't hesitate to instruct the examinees to stop talking should they use this as an opening to chat with the neighbor. If the room gets loud, just stop answering the question and regain control of the situation. Should the quantity of questions jeopardize your ability to proctor the group effectively, you may need to tell them you can't answer any additional questions. Remind them that if they have an issue with a particular question, the comment form can be used to voice that issue or concern. Avoiding this particular situation is why we're asking each proctor to physically collect the test booklet from the seated candidates. Admittedly, this is our worst case scenario, a missing exam booklet. Before you panic, double check your stack and make sure you didn't just miss it. But assuming it's gone, immediately check to see if you have an exam answer sheet with no associated booklet. If so, you can at least determine whose booklet is missing based on the booklet number transferred to the exam answer sheet. You should immediately call your APSP staff contact to report the incident, and you'll be directed to any other steps that you need to take to retrieve the booklet. If you are collecting the test materials in a methodical fashion, not allowing yourself to be rushed by examinees eager to depart, the likelihood of your failing to collect the test booklet is pretty minimal. However, you must also safeguard the collected materials during the test period. You don't want to leave anything out in a spot on the front table that would permit a departing student to easily grab an exam booklet as you have your back turned. If someone should fall ill during the exam, once again your crowd control skills will be called up. If someone were to collapse or become obviously very ill, you should not hesitate to call 911 or send another student out to get help. Instruct the other students to turn their papers over and remain silent, lending assistance as requested. Obviously, this could be a dire situation, so your first priority must be the ill examinee. If you are able to note the time you stopped the exam, ask someone to record it so you can offer back the appropriate extra time when the exam resumes, but that would be a minor consideration in light of the circumstances. Now, if you have a situation in which a student just expresses his or her desire to stop the exam due to illness and leave, that's fine. You simply collect the incomplete exam and all the test materials and allow them to leave. No return should be permitted in that circumstance. Now, if someone says they feel ill but desires to continue the exam after a restroom break, that should be permitted. Collect the exam materials and hold them for his or her return. If the break is more than 15 minutes, you may allow the examinee to continue the exam, but you should document the circumstances and include that when you return the exam materials. As with any restroom break, only one person should be permitted to go at a time. Okay, now that the exam is over, you can pack up all the materials and return them to the tech school coordinator or to APSP via an overnight mail service. You should continue to provide the same level of security until you turn over the package to the overnight mail service. Please ship the package within 24 hours of exam administration unless other arrangements have been made with your APSP staff contact. Before we wrap up, I'd like to touch on a slightly different situation when you're proctoring just one person. If you work at a certified test center, you've already got an approved system to secure belongings and to monitor the candidate throughout the test period. However, if you've completed this training and proctored at a tech school or pool school, we might call you to proctor a single retest exam or perhaps a CSP or CBP exam. If you are willing to help in this way, we would discuss with you whether you know of an appropriate place for conducting the exam, for instance, a conference room in your office or a library quiet room perhaps. Once the site is agreed upon, the instructions are largely the same as for a group. You will need to ensure all personal belongings are secured away from the examinee, and you will be expected to monitor the examinee throughout the exam period. That means being in the same room and paying attention. Of course, in this environment, you may be able to read or do some work alongside the examinee, and that's perfectly acceptable. But this situation does require constant surveillance, so leaving someone alone in a conference room is just not acceptable. And of course, taking this training does not in any way obligate you to proctor when asked. It's always totally up to you. Should you get questions before or after the exam about the results, be aware that the APSP staff will work quickly to provide the sponsoring group coordinator with unofficial pass or fail results from the exam administration, usually within 5 days of the receipt of the package. The official results letter will follow soon thereafter and will be sent directly to the individual examinees within about 3 to 4 weeks. Any specific questions about test results should be directed to your APSP staff contact. The last step in this training is to discuss the Proctor Affidavit and Non-Disclosure form that you should have received coincident with arranging this training session. The affidavit is an important component of our Proctor training since it is your commitment to uphold the policies and procedures you learned in this session. In addition, you're asked to pledge that you will not disclose any information related to the exam nor duplicate the exam. Please read it and sign it and return it to the National APSP office before your first test proctoring event. Probably best to do it as soon as you finish this particular training. Well, that's it. I think by now you've gotten the message that preserving the security of the exam should be your top priority. If taking the exam package under your arm to the restroom seems excessive, well, better that than making the call to APSP that the exam on top of the pile in your box was lifted while you were in the restroom. Thank you very much for going through this course and for your assistance in administering our certification program. We look forward to your involvement with the APSP certification program and Career Institute. Thank you.